Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joulrii. I'm so happy you're here. Today we're talking about my very favorite self-help, self-improvement, personal growth and development books that I think you should read in 2023. Let's get into it. The first book I want to talk about is The Cafe on the Edge of the World by Joulrii. It's also known as the Y Cafe. It has a couple of different covers. This one is the German edition, but I think you can also get this cover now in the English edition. It's been translated into a lot of different languages, so you should be able to get it. This story is basically about this guy named John who's always in a rush, trying to go from point A to point B, is always like in his head thinking a lot about things and always like on to the next, until he's one day in his car and is getting lost. There is no reception, there is no phone service, no GPS, and he just basically drives around not knowing where to go. And all of a sudden this little cafe out of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, appears. So he's running low on gas, so he decides to go in. And basically it turns out that this cafe is not your ordinary cafe where you can just order food and then go. This is a very special cafe. So when the waitress, Casey, comes to him, she gives him a menu, and on this menu, on the back, there are 3 questions. Why are you here? Are you afraid of death? And are you fulfilled? And of course, he's wondering, like, what is going on here? And so he goes in. Whole book, you'll find out why John is just so stressed out, and there's so many, like, pieces of wisdom and like nuggets of wisdom in there that I think everyone can relate to their own life, and I love it. It's like a super short book, has like 200 pages max, 120. It has 120 pages, so it's like really easy, fast read. And I made this a habit to read once a year because I find it so inspirational and so uplifting that every time I finish this book, I am just in such a happier mood already, so I highly recommend this one. Also, this book has 3 other books. It's a little series which follows John in different stages of his life, and then there's also different characters that come up in the other stories and John makes an appearance. But it's really, I think, for any age group who's interested in Jourei's book. He has a way with words describing it, and I actually was lucky enough to be able to go to a reading of him last year in Cologne in Germany, and yeah, he's just an amazing human being and so inspirational. The second book I want to recommend is more of like a self-help workbook, so it actually puts your mind into thinking a lot about what you want to work on, and the book is The Child in You by Stefanie Stahl. She's a German author and psychologist. This book is basically about that everybody is wanting to be accepted. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be loved. But a lot of these things and a lot of our adult trauma stems from childhood. So this book is a lot about your inner child work, healing your inner child. And there's a lot of examples and tasks you can do within this workbook that are actually super, super helpful. And Stefanie Stahl has a way to explain things not in a very complicated way. When you read this, it's not like it's just some psychologist that wrote a book and it's like fancy words and I don't understand. She just keeps it really easy, and even with all the worksheets and examples and tasks that you can do in here, is really easy and really good. So I'm just going to show you, again, I have the German edition, but the English edition should have that as well. She talks about the sun child. So one of the examples in this book that you can do at home as well is to draw a picture of you and write down all the things that you're good at, all the things that make you light up, all the things that bring you joy, all the positive memories. And then, of course, for every sun side, there's also a shadow side. So there's also the shadow child, which looks sad, and where you would write all the things that maybe even you remember, some things that happened to your childhood or in your childhood, you maybe being bullied or something happened in your home which you can remember to this date and it affects you still, right? So this book, I recommended it to all of my friends. It's like, you need to read this. It's such a good book. And there's also a workbook that you can purchase separately if you wanted to go more in depth with it. But as you can see, I marked so many things and exercises in there that I did and still want to do because they're just amazing. Yeah, I think inner child work and healing your inner child is so important for self-love as well. Self-love is a word that gets thrown around so much nowadays, where it's like, oh, take a bath, put on that face mask, treat yourself, all of that. But I think healing comes from within, and if you as a child never learned to love yourself or be loved, it's very hard to just do these self-care activities without any deeper digging. Next book that I want to talk about is called The Millionaire and the Monk, and I don't think a lot of people actually know this book. It's written by Julian Hermsen, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. It's based on a true story, and it's about this millionaire that is similar to the cafe on the edge of the world, that's always in a rush and finds like excuses for like a meaningful life. He just wants more money, more fame, more like all these external validations, until one day he decides to go to a Buddhist temple for 3 weeks and meets his spiritual leader called Natapong. And you can imagine that this is very different from his regular life, and it will turn his life upside down. And I love this story because it's also similar to the cafe on the edge of the world, where it's told through story form, but you get inspirational wisdom nuggets everywhere, and you can relate to it, even if you're not a multimillionaire, but you can relate to it on a personal level as well. The next book is another one by John Strzelecki. It's called Life Safari. This book is about Jack, who doesn't really feel happiness. He doesn't feel happy, he feels unfulfilled, and he always had this vision to go to Africa and do a safari there. And so he saves up for 2 years and he follows his intuition and his calling and flies to Africa. Once he arrives, he meets this very old and wise woman called Mama Gombe, and together they go on a journey to find the birthplace of all. And this is such a beautiful story. I was in tears at the end. It's so beautiful, and John Strzelecki has a way with words that just inspire you when you just read this book. And again, his stories are not super long, so it's like the perfect book for in between. But if you're looking for inspiration and just like a little bit of happiness in a book, I can highly recommend this. I would love to know if you have heard of or read any of these books that I mentioned in today's video before, how you like them, or if you are interested in reading them. And also let me know your favorite book titles. I'm always on the lookout for new books that I can read, and yeah, just write them in the comments below so everybody can get some inspiration and new book recommendations. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful 2023, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.